Howdy, folks. Top of the afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. But today marks Sunday, October 19th, 2025. It's been nearly a month since I have made a film. It's kind of nice not having to do them as often as I used to, because that way, once I do produce a film, it feels a bit more meaningful. Not that it ever wasn't, but I just feel it has greater impact. So, in particular today, we are within central Washington state. And what you're looking at just ahead of you is the well-known Columbia River. But interestingly, the Columbia River kind of runs a bit in an S pattern. So this isn't the section where it forms the border of Oregon and Washington. We're a bit further north. But nevertheless, the Columbia River is a bit like an oasis among the desert landscape that surrounds the area. I mean, just a demonstration of what you're looking at here. So we are essentially within the Columbia River basin, in which the primary bedrock includes basalt. You know, going back to a period of approximately 15 to 16 million years ago, it was during the Miocene epoch. And from that time frame was when much of central and eastern Washington's landscape totally changed. So at one point, before of course something gets in my eye, go figure. So before the Cascade Mountains had formed, further west from here, much of Washington state was practically forested, and it was very marsh-like, just plenty of water resource. But then, as there was more volcanic activity and lava flows, the Cascade Mountains essentially formed due to a convergence zone, also known as subduction, in which the oceanic crust goes under the continental crust, and once that oceanic crust tends to warm up, that's when it forms liquid hot magma, and eventually it will rise due to the amount of pressure. And as a result, from that, as the Cascade Mountains formed, it created a result of what is known as the rain shadow effect. If you were to go, say, west of the Cascade Mountains, or even just slightly to the east, it's a lot more coniferous. There's a lot more rain that occurs. But then, when the rain shadow effect, what happens is, as the warm air rises, that's going to create precipitation, and once the airflow gets past the mountains, it becomes very dry as a result. And that is how we have this type of landscape. Very much more desert-like. Very different. So often you'll find like big sagebrush in front of me, or rabbit brush sage down here. cheatgrass, which is unfortunately a bit more invasive. But those other plants that I just pointed out, those are native. But the Columbia River formed as a result from past ice ages. And the Columbia River formed after the basalt made its establishment here. So often, even in this region of the state, you can't even find petrified wood from the trees that once highly inhabited this region. It's quite cool. And it's also just unique to see cottonwood out here. They're a water-loving tree, and so of course they're going to be right by a water source. Anyway, essentially the Columbia River carved its way into this landscape, and that is how we have some of this exposure of the basalt that I speak of. It's an igneous rock, which primarily means that it formed from lava. And it's primarily the bedrock that makes up our oceanic crust. At least, those are some ideas how we have this type of landscape around us. We just use what is present as leftover evidence, more or less. At least we share what we can based on what remains. Alright, you guys, have a good one. See you later. And of course, journey on a journey is onwards. See you later.